Remember when I said that the only diversity that counted was diversity of thought? Well, apparently the Minrathad guilds didn't get that lesson. It has by far the most amount of different races of significant populations of any nation. It is home to two clans of elves, as well as large numbers of dwarves, hens, and human. And all of them have given up their racial identity to follow the Minrathad creed that greed is good. The varied races put aside their cultural differences to become a single nation, devoted to expanding its market share at the expense of its soul. I'm Mr. Welch, and we're taking a trip to where he who makes the gold makes the rules, Minrathad. Minrathad has been described as the second elven homeland, as they do have a clan that originated from their shores in the Water Elves. To stop a common misconception, Water Elves are only found on the surface of the water. They can't breathe water, they're the same as other surface elves, although far more fond of ships and sailing than the rest of their kin. The undersea elves are the aquatic elves, who live in the appropriately named undersea kingdom of Aquarindi and don't get along with the nation of Minrathad. To add in more elf goodness, there's a clan of sylvan elves on Minrathad known as the Wood Elves, who migrated to the nation shortly after the islands were formed. Geographically, the nation is comprised of 7 volcanic islands, with only 5 of the islands having a significant population. Fire Island and Blackrock Island have large active volcanoes, making settling there a risky proposition. Throw in constant smoke and ash that are common around the islands, and even getting to them is quite dangerous. There are some that claim the islands. Those are mostly pirates and mystics there for their own reason. Their presence is no secret, but few are willing to risk the hazards of the islands to approach them. The business of Minrathad is business, and the nation takes its industry deadly seriously. It's run by its guild, and they keep a tight rein on anyone who dares break the monopolies. If you want to sell leather goods, you had better be a member of Guild Quickhand. Minrathad enforces the monopolies by law, and they rival Glantry in the cruelty of their punishments. Most Minrathad sentences are carried out with an axe, but as long as you have body parts left, you are free to ply your wares. In addition to the guild system, Minrathad has a strictly enforced caste system. Castes are determined by the quality of your work. If you aren't good at your job, you will never rise in your caste. Your caste also determines your pay and level of employment. The better you are at work, the more money and benefits you will be granted. There are 6 caste levels, though most will never raise above the 2nd rank, and they just will aspire to rise to the 3rd rank. The one exception is the merchant princes, wizards who use their magics to protect the convoys and shipments. They are the 5th rank in the castes, but that is the only rank they will ever know. Most Minrathadans associate their guild before any other ties, including family. They advertise their guild with accessories on their clothing, with pins being the most common. Their pin will show their guild, as well as their caste level, reflected by the metal that it is made out of. While race is still a factor in people's lives, it is a distant second to loyalty to the guilds. Some nepotism happens in the guilds, but if a child can't handle the workload imposed on them, they will more than likely be disowned by their family. If someone is a hard worker and useful to the guild, they will be protected and rewarded. If someone produces poor quality goods, or worse, makes the guilds look bad, they will be used as a fall guy the next time the guilds need to blame someone for a problem. Minrathadans are notoriously insular. Either you belong to a guild or you aren't worth their time. The guild wants your gold, they don't care about your company. This gives the islanders a well-deserved reputation of being cold and very matter-of-fact. Guild merchants rarely bargain with outsiders. They charge a flat fee to the people they don't know. If you're a member of the guild, then you get prearranged sale prices when the merchant sees your pen. The guilds work out their differences in conference room, where employee discounts and first chance offers are worked out behind the scenes. If you aren't from Minrathad, it doesn't matter who you aren't catching a break. Typical benefits from being in the guild include a 40% discount on purchases in the islands, though prices are marked up in advance, so guild members are actually just paying normal retail. Guild members are offered credit for some purchases, something that is unavailable to outsiders. Members in good standing pay little to no interest at all. Guild members are offered items for sale before the general public, so things like food are often second rate when it hits the market. Bankers reduce Minrathad's almost usurious exchange rates to next to nothing for guild members, a benefit for sailors that is rarely talked about. And lastly, thanks to an exchange of services, any guild member willing to perform some work for another guild can earn free passage upon their outgoing ships. There are 2 types of guilds in Minrathad, family guilds and political guilds. Family guilds, as the name suggests, were founded by a specific family and are usually associated with one race or another. Elson is made up of mostly water elves, and as you can expect, handle most of the ship-related businesses. If you want to fish, work on a ship, or construct ships, you will need to be part of Guild Elson. Verdier is run by wood elves and deal with everything involving wood or cloth goods. All carpenters, tailors, and bowyers are going to be working for Guild Verdier. By special arrangement, they share the role of farmers with Guild Quickhand. Hammer is the Dwarven Guild, and of course deals with all things metal and stone. Every miner, mason, and smith is a member of Guild Hammer. Because of the vital nature of these jobs, as well as the high quality the dwarves produce, Hammer is one of the more influential guilds. Quick Hand is run by Hen, though its members do include a significant number of humans and other demi-humans. The guild is in charge of leatherworking, fuel-making, and pottery. Quick Hand doesn't make many high-value items, though they do make a large number of essential products like lamp oil, meaning unlike the other guilds, they profit entirely on volume. Lastly, Courser is the human-dominated guild, focusing on luxury items. They deal in spices, liquors, and alchemy components, and even rarely deal in magic items if they can be found outside the nation cheaply. Guild Courser items are not cheap, but they are always in demand. The political guilds are required for Minrathad to function. They were created because of the demand for the positions they fill, and their members owe allegiance to Minrathad first before anyone else. The Merchant Sailors Guild trains sailors for Minrathad's vast merchant fleet. They're trained by Guild Elson for years, and they're apprenticed back to their own guild before assuming normal duties. Every Minrathad ship is crewed by dozens of these sailors. The Mercenary Guilds are one of 3 military units paid to protect the islands and the merchant fleet. They're a small force compared to other nations, but their job is to stop the enemy from reaching Minrathad's shores, so a heavy focus is placed on Marines. The Thieves Guild is actually the spy agency of Minrathad, as they pose as local thieves to give themselves cover. A thief caught snooping around the docks in another country is likely to get a less lethal sentence than a spy. The Tutorial Guild consists of wizards hired by Minrathad to protect their shipping, and then their country in that order. The feared merchant princes are trained here, and the guild likes to put at least one wizard on every merchant ship if possible. The last guild is the Ruling Guild, and it has always been Clan Meditor. Once a ceremonial position, Orin Meditor has restored it to a position of power. Usually the guildmaster settles disputes between the other guilds. Now Orin plays them off each other. He has opened up Minrathad to foreign markets and used the prosperity that ensued to further his own personal goal of controlling the entire nation. If Minrathad had an alignment, it would be opportunistically neutral. They will do business with anyone, even their arch-rival Darrakan, though they have to be pretty desperate for that to happen. There is little that Minrathad doesn't sell. Even items it forbids, like slaves, can be found if the price is high enough. They will not hesitate to take advantage of a business partner if they can make a profit without burning the relationship. They are fiercely protective of their markets. For example, the aquatic race known as the Kana are commonly found selling their goods across the markets of the known world, except in Minrathad, who hunts them with an almost genocidal passion. Nobody does business in Minrathad waters unless you're a member of the guilds. The guilds operate all sorts of illicit activities abroad, anything to increase the demand for their products. They have been in an economic cold war with Darrakan for decades now, both striving to corner the market wherever their convoys and caravans can reach. Minrathad has shipping that stretches from Alphatia all the way to the Savage Coast, though due to the Red Curse, most ships avoid the Savage Baronies for anything but the briefest of visits. The guilds are not above piracy. They have a large number of privateers working for them to delay or sink rivals. This practice is no secret to other nations, and Minrathad does offer some degree of protection if privateers surrender without a fight. Of course, nations such as Thyatis doesn't care what people call themselves if they're being raided, and the punishments there are frequently quite abrupt. Economically, Minrathad's biggest weakness is the demand for maximum profit immediately. They have a tendency to go for short-term investments rather than brokering long-term deals. Captains want to make as much money as fast as they can, ignoring more profitable but longer routes. Darrakan often takes advantage of this by backloading deals so that the initial cost is small, but in the end the profit is larger. The guilds also aren't adverse to sabotage, using the Thieves Guild and local agents to provide a degree of separation between Minrathad and the arsonists. This tactic isn't as effective as it used to be, and tools such as magic or hiring increased security for sensitive cargoes can make the effort more trouble than it's worth. Plus, when a Darrakan warehouse burns down during a bidding war with Minrathad, the diplomatic corps automatically knows who's probably responsible. So when a Minrathad ship the next day is confiscated for contraband, it's all part of the business. Minrathad has only opened their markets to outsiders 50 years ago, but have quickly taken over half the world market. They do make high-quality goods, despite their reputation for ruthlessness. Their fleets mean they get their goods to market faster than anyone else, especially if the merchant princes are using their magic to ensure safe arrival of even perishable items. The guilds aren't interested in helping stabilize foreign economies. They just want to sell their goods for a high markup, and buy local goods at a discount. They don't invest in their customers, and they don't offer credit either. It's profitable, but the guilds are starting to notice that nations are using Darrakan suggestions to normalize markets globally. Whether Minrathad can catch up with Darrakan's economic tricks remains to be seen. Minrathad's biggest targets are the newly emerging markets of the Turtle clan of Etrugan, as well as Sind and the nations of the Savage Coast. Their nautical power gives them an advantage over Darrakan, though they can't transport as many goods as Darrican's caravans. Minrathad's usual trade strategy is to identify needed trade goods, then send an armada of merchant ships to both flood the local market, as well as buy up any in-demand trade items before Darrican can arrive. This was a viable tactic in the past, though the effectiveness of it has started to fade. The Turtle Clan, for example, has caught on to Minrathad's methods, and will only offer a portion of the trade goods the guilds are looking for. This keeps other trading partners happy, but also lets the Turtle Clan control market prices locally. The more savvy Minrathad merchants are starting to realize the clan is becoming an economic power on its own. The one commodity that Minrathad will pay just about any amount of gold for is anything firearms related from the Savage Coast. The highest status symbol possible for a merchant prince is an engraved brace of pistols. Since smoke powder is only found in the Savage Baronies, ground zero for the Red Curse, acquiring the items is quite risky. Guns are also heavily restricted by the group known as the Inheritors, who try to keep them out of the hands of outsiders. Guild members caught with firearms can expect no mercy from these self-appointed guardians. Captains in the know head to the county of Cimarron, where guns have replaced the bow as the preferred ranged weapon. Because Inheritors aren't welcome in Cimarron, the merchant princes are free to buy as many guns as they can afford, which unfortunately isn't much. Cimarron knows it has a valuable commodity, and charges accordingly. Worse is the cost of the powder, where a single cannon shot will set you back hundreds of gold pieces. Since the gunslinger has to return to Cimarron for reloads, the gunsmiths can name their own price. Still, a ship of the line armed with cannons is a match for even the dreaded fireships of Irendi, though the cost to reload all the cannons would bankrupt any captain. One of Minrathad's greatest assets is their use of merchant princes, or wizards trained by the Tutorial Guild and devoted to protecting the merchant ships en route to port. These wizards use typical arcane spells to defend their ships, but also have spells created specifically for protecting maritime trade. Spells typically include things like weather control, which is normally reserved for druids, as well as spells designed to reduce the labor required on voyages. As you can imagine, the second set of spells make merchant princes quite popular among the regular seamen. Minrathad's merchant princes serve as a counter to Darrican's merchant wizards, though they won't admit it. Many of them share the same spells. Espionage against the two nations' merchant wizards is high, with spells designed for protecting shipments a priority target for theft. While the stereotypical Minrathadan is a humorous workaholic who puts their job above all else, the nation does have multiple holidays to let its population cut loose for a day before going back to the drudgery that is their lives. There are 4 major religions in Minrathad, each corresponding with a specific immortal. All the religions preach the importance of a strong work ethic, but have mandatory holy days that give their followers days off. Minrathad has its own calendar, consisting of 11 months of 30 days each, with a special holy week in winter for a total of 336 days. The guilds allow for several holidays in the calendar, with every holiday being a cause for celebration. Leaving out the 2 volcanic islands, foreigners are welcome for business on the 5 major islands. Okay, welcome is a subjective term. They will be tolerated on the 5 major islands. Trader's Island is the largest island, home to the capital of Minrathad. It is normally surrounded by fog, making getting into the harbor dangerous for unfamiliar pilots. The island does provide trained pilots that can guide a foreign ship in, for a fee. The island has 2 major cities. Apart from the capital, there's also Harbor Town. The capital of Minrathad is dominated by Guild Meditor, while Harbor Town is run by Guild Courser. Harbor Town is the more working-class city, while Minrathad is where the merchants go for large-scale deals. There is a rivalry between the two, though it's pretty one-sided as the people of Harbor Town are considered beneath the notice of the citizens of Minrathad. Open Isle is the home to most of the Hen, and produces a large amount of the nation's food. Anyone doing business on the island will head to Malfton to purchase goods. Hen going through their Yularan stage can be found waiting on the docks looking for ships to take them on adventures, and many of these younger Hen have even started building the small town of Prospect Hill. Outsiders are not welcome to settle on Open Isle. Even visitors from the other islands will find a cold shoulder among the population. Open Islanders are friendly enough to each other, but if they don't know you, they can't be bothered. Elf Isle is home to the Wood Elves and is the second largest island. It is heavily wooded, as the elves maintain the forest as their primary source of income. If you aren't a wood elf, you aren't welcome on the island, except for the town of Seaholm. That city is known for being the most elegant in the entire nation, surpassing even the structures of the capital. Every building is a work of art, even the large fortress that dominates the harbor. Verdun is the smaller of the island's 2 towns, and is populated by wood elves. Here, every building is formed entirely from wood, and while the city isn't as well defended as Seaholm, it also has little in value for pirates to steal. Teak logs might be worth their weight in gold, but you aren't loading it onto a longboat during a raid. North Island is the smallest of the 5 core islands and serves more of a defensive position as well as providing emergency relief for ships in distress. The island has a single major town, Gapton, and its primary function is to provide supplies to ships in need as well as serving as a sanctuary from storms with numerous natural harbors. The island doesn't produce any trade goods. Instead, it's populated mainly by marines and ship crews there to police the surrounding areas and help ships in danger of foundering. Fortress Island, as you can expect, is home to most of the dwarves in Minrathad. It is the remnant of the volcano Red Dung, which has been erupting constantly for decades now. The surface of the island is little more than volcanic rock. Very little grows on the island's surface. Here the dwarves churn out their products in vast numbers, combining dwarven artifice with the Minrathadan single-mindedness. The island gets its name from the city of Stronghold, which is possibly the most heavily defended place on the planet. The dwarves created a gauntlet of defenses to reach their port, way more than needed to defend the city against any known threat. Even their countrymen wonder who exactly the dwarves of Fortress Island are planning to defend themselves against. Minrathad has no allies, only trading partners. They keep up a firm policy of staunch neutrality, refusing to take sides in any conflict. They will gladly sell weapons and supplies to both sides in a war, and have been suspected of trying to increase hostilities between rival nations. War is good for business, after all. Their list of enemies is short but impressive. First and foremost, of course, is Darrakan. The two nations have a long history of competition, and any major trade negotiation between other nations will involve both. The rising merchant power of Vestland is a concern to Minrathad, as Vestlanders are expert sailors, command powerful magics, and are more importantly ferocious in combat. Many a privateer has discovered that while Vestland has tried to leave its history of raiding behind, its people still pride themselves on their combat prowess. Minrathad also has a testy history with Thyatus, as Minrathad tries to claim remote islands when they think Thyatus is weak. The merchants walk a fine line, as many times Thyatus can be bought off, but other times they prefer to get their point across with their far more numerous legions. So why play someone from the Minrathad guilds? They're known for being humorous workaholics who have a streak of ruthless pragmatism. But they're driven in their goals, possess unusual magics, and can gain access to some of the most exotic materials on the market. For nautical campaigns, Minrathadans thrive on the open ocean, and their ships can be found everywhere there is a port. If you want rare equipment from distant parts of Mystara, few can match the Minrathad guilds for their selection. This concludes the remaster of the Minrathad guilds. It is one of the most unique nations in Mystara, but doesn't get the same love as Karamikos or Glantry. Probably because a good chunk of their book is crunch. Next in line is the Orcs of Thar, which is a dividing point among Mystara players. Do you prefer the silly bumbling humanoids, or do you want a serious and competent threat? But until then, if money can't buy happiness, I guess I'll have to rent it.